Carney flips as Supreme Court Chief Judge Richard Wagner orders election recounts. Welcome to Canadian Express, your trusted source for the latest and most important news from across Canada. The 2025 federal election has turned into one of the most controversial and unprecedented political events in recent Canadian history. What many anticipated to be a smooth transition of power has instead become a deeply contested and turbulent process, casting serious doubts on the integrity of the country's electoral system. Initially, the elections seemed to favour Mark Carney and the Liberal Party. Supported by established party figures, Carney was widely regarded by media and politicians alike as the next leader of Canada. However, as results began to come in, reports of irregularities emerged, particularly concerning mail-in ballots, which showed inconsistencies such as mismatched signatures and administrative errors. Voting pattern shifts late in the process and unusual statistical outcomes compared to prior polls set off alarms among analysts and voters. Meanwhile, the Conservative Party, led by Pierre Poilievre, had gained significant momentum, especially through large rallies in the western provinces. Poilievre's message resonated even in traditionally Liberal strongholds. Despite these challenges, the Liberals claimed just enough seats to form a minority government, but the narrow margin and the emerging concerns created a tense and uncertain post-election atmosphere. The turning point came with a bold move by Supreme Court Chief Judge Richard Wagner, known for his impartial role in upholding Canada's constitutional framework. Rather than immediately confirming the election results, Wagner ordered audits and recounts in several closely contested ridings, citing widespread public concerns and multiple legal petitions. In a public statement, he underscored the principle that democracy must not only work properly, but also be seen to work properly, a message that echoed deeply across the nation. The recount process uncovered significant irregularities in ridings across Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada, areas traditionally considered safe for the Liberals. These audits revealed problems such as outdated voter registries, incorrect postal codes on ballots, and signature mismatches on mail-in votes. The recounts led to flipped seats, shifting the balance of power toward the Conservatives. As these results came to light, protests erupted in cities including Calgary, Edmonton, Regina, and Toronto, with citizens demanding transparency, justice, and in some cases, a full nationwide recount. Mark Carney issued brief statements reaffirming his commitment to democratic values, but offered little clarity or reassurance. In contrast, Pierre Poilievre took a proactive stance, engaging directly with voters through town halls and speaking out against what he described as failures and attempts to downplay the seriousness of the electoral issues. The crisis exposed fractures within the Liberal Party, with some MPs expressing frustration with Carney's leadership behind closed doors. Anonymous sources described a lack of charisma, weak grassroots organisation, and dissatisfaction with the leadership's handling of the situation. Critics argued that the Liberals had miscalculated public sentiment and taken voter loyalty for granted. In Alberta, where regional tensions over energy policies and autonomy already simmered, the election turmoil reignited debates about provincial separation. Petitions calling for referendums on the matter began circulating. Similarly, in Quebec, skepticism about the election's legitimacy grew, even among residents who did not support the Conservatives. Legal experts and watchdog groups called for thorough investigations beyond recounts, questioning the handling of mail-in ballots and whether any electoral laws were breached or warnings from Elections Canada ignored. There were serious inquiries into the sudden surge of last-minute ballots and the adequacy of safeguards in place. Pierre Poilievre continued to emphasise that the integrity of Canadian democracy was at stake. At a press conference, he demanded legal accountability for any wrongdoing and called for transparent investigations. Governor-General Simon echoed these sentiments, stressing the need for openness, accountability, and responsible governance to rebuild public trust. In a historic move, Mary Simon announced that she would not confirm any government until all recounts and judicial reviews were complete, effectively pausing the political transition. This unprecedented decision highlighted the critical importance of due process and fairness in the democratic system. Mark Carney, caught off guard, responded briefly by reiterating his support for democracy, but did not engage with detailed questions. Internationally, reactions were cautiously supportive, with organisations like the United Nations and Commonwealth partners praising Canada's commitment to transparency and the US State Department calling the developments necessary to bolster public confidence. What initially appeared as a political crisis has gradually been seen as an effort to preserve the legitimacy of Canada's democracy. The focus has shifted from party politics to the health of democratic institutions themselves. As recounts continue and more ridings shift toward the Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre is emerging as a likely future Prime Minister. Canadians now have high expectations for him to not only address electoral reforms, but also broader issues like restoring public trust, revisiting recent legislation, and ensuring transparency in government. The Governor-General's intervention has also sparked renewed scrutiny of Elections Canada and the mechanisms governing mail-in voting. Canadians are demanding stronger oversight and safeguards for future elections. This election has ignited civic engagement like never before. Young voters are more involved, families are discussing democratic responsibilities, and citizens across the country are paying closer attention to political processes. Canada now stands at a crossroads. The path forward depends on continued public engagement, responsible leadership, and institutional reforms to make sure democracy is fair, transparent, and truly representative. Stay informed with Canadian Express, bringing you the stories that matter to Canadians everywhere.